Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here with John Long, learning about all of the lessons learned throughout his 35 years at the school district. Um, he has been in the Department of Educational Technology for 23 of those years, and he has been my dear friend and esteemed colleague for 20 years. He is a phenomenal educator, very passionate about his work, and I can't wait for you all to hear all about what he has to offer. Please remember to add chats and communicate with us in the chat box, like and subscribe to our channel, and know that our moderators either have a wrench next to them or at PB. I I'm not sure, Palm Beach Educational Technology symbol next to it. Um, Again, lessons learned with John Long. And just so you know, our agenda today, we have sessions A, B, and C. This is our C session. If you've not gotten a chance to go into the Kumo space, please do. It's phenomenal. And also, there will be a student voice panel at 12:25. Remember to put hashtag PBC TechConf in the notes to be entered into the prize drawing. And within our entire Department of Educational Technology, with our lovely John Long in the middle, will be presenting today. So without further ado, Mr. Long, I will pass the baton to you.
Thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate the intro. I really appreciate that a lot. All right. So a bit about me. I wanted to kind of let you know a couple things. I've been at every tech conference since the very beginning in 1998, actually. That's 23 years ago. This is our 23rd conference. And it's been my pleasure to be at all of them. My first years, I presented every year. I presented nearly every session on student standards. And I already taught 12 years when I came up to the district office. And so I wanted to share a little bit with you. And people keep asking me, well, how are you going to share 35 years? Well, it's going to be broken up into some points. So I'm kind of curious on how long you've been teaching. So put that in the comments up there, and just kind of curious to see how many of you have been teaching 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25. Anybody teaching longer than me? Because I'm sure there are. I've had a few colleagues that have taught up to 40 years and stuff like that. So we're going to get started, and I've got a few thoughts to actually think. Oh, since August 22, welcome to your first year. All right, so here we go. So when we get to this thing, I want you to think about some things to begin with. First of all, when you do get started here, we are all learners, so we all have something to learn. Also, we never stop learning. So learning is a process that keeps on growing. It's a big year for keep on growing. And we as educators our job is even more important. And that reason is because it's more important because we shape the lives of multiple generations. It's not just one generation, it's multiple generations. I have students still come up to me. I have a student that came up from Office Depot, and every time he delivers something, he comes and says hi to me because he remember what I taught him in music. And so, ta-da! This is going to be my learning story to share with you today. So, I'm all about the creative. There it is. There it's not. There it is. There it's not. And you can't see the mouse ears, but they're there as well. So, this is what I look like then. This wasn't my first year. Uh, didn't have these fancy cameras to document everything, which I do now every day. And this is me now. I taught at Roosevelt Elementary for 12 years, and I started some of these lessons learned even back then, even when technology was just kind of getting started. And I did a lot of research on what kids engaged in technology and how that engaged them and stuff like that. So I'm gonna like put this over here because it's extremely hot. And draw this, and we'll get started with our regular stuff. All right, so this is going to be basically my learning journey. It actually started way before, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to share just stuff from 35 years. Oh, we got a lot of people from 36 to 25. All right, some of you have been here longer than me. That's great. All right, so this is something that's really important to me. I learned this from a friend of mine that presented about 20 so years ago. And integrating technology, and we all remember Bloom's taxonomy from years ago, the basic components. Well, these are some technology uses for those components. And a lot of times we focus on different activities to measure those, such as portfolios, SAT, ACT, end of grade test. And these are some of the different types of technology projects that we focus on. The problem is over the years, I noticed that a lot of people focused on this part just right here, which is on the knowledge and comprehension part. And they never get to the top part, which is where the kids actually prove that they can actually do those things. We don't give them the time to process. And so I've always been about project based learning and doing projects. I learned that growing up. I taught that way, and I like to share that way with other educators so they can do it. And I'm going to share different examples of things over those 35 years. So, this is what I want to share with you about how things are broken up. First of all, this is my main goal. Literacy is the magic thread that ties everything together. If we don't focus on literacy, because most of our schools need to focus on literacy, everything should be about literacy. And then we can focus on the math will fit together, the science, the social studies, everything fits together. And I'm all about putting it all together. The next thing is lessons learned. So, what I wanted to do is how am I going to teach 35 years to you in just a few short minutes? Well, I divide it into 4 areas: learning through creation, using data to learn, multimedia storytelling, and teaching life skills with standards-based instructions. And some of you may notice the duck over there. That's 6 Lego bricks. Can you imagine how many different combinations of that Lego set on different versions of ducks there are? Anybody want to guess? Well, here's a good answer for you. 102,981,500 combinations. If I gave those 6 bricks, you'll never see hardly anyone do the same example. You'll see multiple examples over all of them. That's what teaching creativity it really does, is it really opens those up. So let's kind of break it down. So I'm going to show a lot of different things here. I'm always about experiences and creation. Critical thinking, collaboration, I still focus on all of that. So some of these examples are different examples over some of those 35 years. Those are just the highlights. I've literally worked on hundreds of projects. These are just a few examples just to kind of get me going. But there's a lot of things. So let's talk about learning through creation. All right, learning through creation is you don't have to know everything to get started. A lot of teachers are really frustrated by trying to even get started. Start with something small. Don't start with something big. Make sure that you always start with an idea that aligns to your standards, because that's what your administrators are going to be looking for, is does it align to my standards? If you're covering my standards, you're covering that answer. I always say start off small. I always say after you've done the project once, reflect on it. What went well? What didn't go well? Maybe it's a project that you didn't like. Maybe it didn't really work well. And so you need to actually think about that and reflect on it and then change it. Make it work for you. I'm going to share some examples. Focusing on your learning objective. Don't focus on the technology. I'm all in about ed tech, but my focus is not on the technology, it's on students learning. When students learn, they achieve. I know we're all about achievement, but if they can learn, they can achieve. All right, so let's talk about some examples in creativity. This is a project about, I think this was like about 7 or 6 years ago that I worked with a school. This principal asked me to, says she had a teacher that wanted to do something about the water cycle. And hello, Carla. And so, anyway, we were talking about things about teaching the water cycle. She wanted to do a project with technology. They had some iPads and they wanted to do this. And so I said, okay, let's make a paper slide video. That's something simple. It could be done really easily. She said that they had already done the water cycle. They did a reader's theater, they had did a song. They already knew the water cycle. So this was going to be a piece of cake. Well, the kids in the circle there are writing the script. I had kids work in groups of 4. You had 4 assignments. You had the script writer, you had the artist making the artifacts. We tried doing some music with it, but that was a little bit too much for second graders. And then we did video where they actually videotaped the paper slide video, and then everyone got into the act of actually explaining that. Well, one kid brought up to me something and said, "What is this word?" And I said, "It's precipitation." I kept thinking, you actually know this video? You know this concept? Well, actually, there were some gaps there. But by the time they had done the water cycle, they knew the thing from condensation to precipitation to collection to evaporation. That was the other one. So that's why it's important to give them a hands on activity to produce something. They went and shared their stuff and these videos with a senior citizens home down the street and really showed how this water cycle worked. This is another one of my favorite projects. This was called the Digital Mystery. This was based on what we did called the Digital Fairy Tale. Digital Fairy Tale came out of standards based on fairy tales in second grade, and they did a mystery project in third grade. And so what we wanted to do was actually do a mystery. Well, how do you write a mystery? In the second grade for the fairy tale, it was easy. All you just did was write the narrative with the characteristics. But the mystery was different. We actually had to develop the ending first.
Hi, guys. I think John froze on us. Can you guys write in the comments? Is it just me or did John
All right,
freeze? It looks.
am I
Oh,
back?
you're back.
Melissa, am I
Yay.
back?
Yes. Thumbs up.
Sorry,
Oh, and he froze again.
and am I here?
You're here, but you're a little
I think
on
I'm
and
here.
off again. I think you're here.
Well,
Okay,
that's
fine.
because my power surge, and my internet went out, so I'm using my iPad to get me online. So I'm sorry for that.
Ooh, but you're very blotchy and hard to understand. And he froze again. While he is fixing his technology, why don't we write in the comments, how do you have your students create? What tools do you use? What activities do you do? While John's figuring that out, let's go ahead and add some comments. Yeah, I agree, Joe. It looks like a bad network connection. If you guys can chat in that comment, how do you guys have your students create? Let's give John a chance to hop back on however he can. We all know he's the tech savviest of us all. So if anybody can figure it out, he definitely can. Um, Anybody? Can y'all write in the chat for me? I'm gonna give you a different question if you don't. Tara, Beatrice, Carla, Miss Walker, and now it's just me. Hello. He'll come back. Oh, Adobe Spark Green Acres. I love Adobe Spark. I learned it. Many of you know Kim Kavanaugh, who used to be with us. He taught me everything I know about Adobe Spark, and I love it. Leah wrote, I have them create a play from a topic we're learning about or talking about. That is phenomenal. I love the idea. What grade, Leah? Um, for instance, gangs, she wrote. That's a really great idea where they take what they've learned and they create an entire presentation that or a play. That is phenomenal. Dana wrote Flip, which used to be Flip Grid, and we all love that. Um, Green Acres wrote Kim was awesome. Oh, Kim Kavanaugh, yes. I'm so sad. I saw a picture of him the other day and it kind of made me tear up a bit. Leah Scott, 7th grade, so they definitely can do that. I'm used to that elementary group. So, okay, let's pose another question. How do your students use data to learn? And hopefully John will pop back in here pretty soon. Great engagement with Flip, Jonathan. Yes, JD, I love Flip. We used to use that all the time when I was upstairs in ed tech. Flipgrid was really dynamic. Carla says she's not in the classroom, but always try to keep it interactive and high interest. That is two phenomenal tricks, Carla. We had just had a conversation about even with adults. It doesn't matter what you're teaching if it's not interactive, it's not engaging, it doesn't have that high interest level, you're going to lose your learners. So it's very difficult to keep interactivity and engagement if you don't have interaction and engagement. Leah wrote, they measure their reading counts growth. I love that. Definitely, that is a way to use data to learn. Reading counts is a great tool to measure comprehension and to make sure that what they're reading, they understand and are digesting. So, that is a great way to use data to learn. Have you ever had them make their own graphs based off of their own testing scores to see whether or not, that line chart or that pie graph is reflective of their learning and the way that they want it to go? That would also be a phenomenal way to have them integrate their math with their test scores and tie that data to learning and growth. Tommy Lynn, hi Tommy Lynn. I haven't seen you in forever. I miss you. Um, she wrote, we tie in data from assessments with growth mindset. Did our class have a better average than last time? I love that. That way, it's a whole class opportunity to achieve growth. And I often tied that into extra recess, but again, I was 2nd grade. But that was something that was an easy, very inexpensive way to um, have my students try that little bit harder than before. Um, John wrote he uses data chats based on fast scores. I love that. Wonderful. I couldn't read that. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. Green Acres wrote classroom teachers use data chats. Where have I? where have I been? Where do I want to go? I love that. So digesting their own learning. Um, Using data to monitor their progress. Perfect. Tommy Lynn has first grade. I love that. Ooh, John Long just popped back in, so we'll give him a minute to grab his presentation. Um, Tara wrote, as an ESEVE teacher, I use data to know what they need support on. So, John, we're so happy you're back. I just kind of went through your questions while you were gone. We got some really great answers, and I'm going to pop off and let you continue.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's what happens when your power goes out and takes your internet with you. So thank you for hanging in there with me. So I apologize for that. Now just kind of go through the mystery. Um, we developed the ending first, we did the clues, and then we wrote the narrative through the clues. And so that was basically how we did the mystery. So a lot goes on with all that. So let's go back to another project. So using data to learn. Well, this is something that a lot of us already do. We use data a lot in our district because we're a data driven district, but we go beyond just data chats and stuff like that. So we do things like using data to learn, like graphing and doing stuff using M&Ms to create a pie chart or stuff like that. We use probeware, like a couple of things I'm going to share with you in a minute, and we wanted to use the data to learn their standards. So those are some ways of actually doing it. So we always want to focus on the standard, but let them build something out of that. So here's a couple of examples here. So you want to be a meteorologist. So this is basically using something like this. This is a weather sensor that has 17 sensors, from temperature to barometer to an anerometer for measuring wind speed to measuring GPS location, latitude. And the idea is that students collect data. They create the temperatures. They create how to create the warm fronts, the other fronts. They use satellite data. They use everything like what a weather meteorologist does, and they create their own weather reports. So they're using data to make observations and collections to actually create them. You can do that in fifth grade if you want to. You can do it in second grade where they teach the water cycle. So it's always a way to create those different things. Going forward, we've got another one, and I loved this one. This was created with a friend of mine, Dr. Eva Swiner, and we created Force and Motion, and this is called The Life of a Crash Dummy. And the idea is that they're learning force and motion. They're using sensors like what we show with the weather to measure force, but those smart cart that you see there actually measures newtons. And they learn to reduce newtons by creating a bumper to actually help them. So we are trying to help Pablo actually fix that problem. So those are some things that we can share. And I love all the different answers you're saying, Ms. Walker. Thank you for sharing those. All right, so multimedia story. This is something I started off a long time ago because basically learning is telling a story. And I created digital storytelling academies. And what we were trying to do is teach how learning is telling a story. Whatever they learn, let them tell the story of that. So here's a couple examples. These kindergartners are learning the pledge, but they're learning the definitions of each one of the words. So they're not just learning the pledge, they're learning to internalize the meaning of the pledge. There's a good example of teaching the quadratic equation as a rap. That's a high school project because I don't remember what the quadratic equation is, but if you taught it as a rap, then that you're actually doing it. If they can create it, they can understand it. Let's talk some examples about that. First of all, the Digital Storytelling Academy is, like I said there, we did the pledge video, we did the quadratic equation. I love science with Emiko. She's talking about static electricity, and she does a fabulous job. This child is an introvert, and when she did the video, oh my gosh, you would have never known she was an introvert. And then one of the things that I really liked, we started developing learning apps to different doing ways when we started doing mobile learning with tablets and with Chromebooks. And we use animation like this example of states of matter to animate what a gas, solid, and a liquid are. So those are some examples for creating those ways of the academy. All right. This was a good project. This was another paper slide video in a 12th grade classroom. How many of you have read Othello? It is super hard to read, and I am an adult. Well, these kids, they were reading Othello, and the teacher came to me and they go, "What's a project that we can do with them?" So I'm like, let's create a paper slide video. They have to summarize, there's 5 acts in Othello. They had to summarize each act into 1 minute. So they had to know what was important and what was not important and can write the script in a 1 minute video, create the artwork, and they actually created soundtracks because the soundtracks had to convey the mood of that act. So those are some examples of some artwork. The artwork looks like something from The Simpsons. Um, I loved Othello because he looked like Mr. T. I'm Mr. T. I'm Othello, and I can really rock this place. And so that's really cool. Is that Othello? No, that's the guy that looks like a Jedi. But anyway, this is a great example of Othello and stuff like that. There's Mr. T. There's Othello. All right. I'm glad I could see them real quick. All right. So this was a really cool project. And we did this in 2 weeks. It was amazing. And I thought it was a really good way to learn things. All right. Teaching life skills with standards-based instruction. This was something we started back in the 2000s. We started with a couple of things where we focus on the learning, teach skills around literacy, computational, and thinking and observation. Learning is always the key. I hope you're getting the theme here that learning is the key. All right. So we started with challenge-based learning. Does anybody know what challenge-based learning is? Well, in our case, we focused on ninth graders and challenge-based learning, and we focused on how the students, where they wanted to be, who they were, thinking about what are your goals in life? Where do you want to go from this? Do you want to actually teach that? They had to come up with ways of actually presenting themselves. How did they focus on what their life skills? Some of them didn't know what they want to do. Some of them knew what they want to do. They had to create timelines for what do they want to do in 2 years? What do they want to do in 5 years? What do they want to do in 10 years? They had to do a piece on how they admired who they was their hero or who they admired. It was interesting to see who they admire. I'm sure today it would be even different than what it was, say, 13 years ago. When we did this, actually, it was like 12 years ago in 2010, I believe. But it was interesting. And then we also did something a little bit different recently, and because we had to do this when we were focusing on it stuff, but we also wanted to focus on research. This was something that was really important, and a lot of times teachers say that they teach research, but really the kids aren't really knowing how to use Google. They don't know that the district provides millions of dollars worth of databases and that these things are really, really available. And we actually had resources from the public library. So those are some things that we wanted to teach to those students. So that's kind of a really cool way of pushing those in. We want to kind of focus on them. We focus on research in secondary. We focus research on elementary. We always made sure that we started with a book. The secondary literacy project research was focused on Dreamland Burning, which was a historical nonfiction book, or historical fiction, I believe it was. And it really told the story of what happened in 1921 and what happened in 2021. And it's a mystery, actually. It's very unique. And they had to create research projects based on that as they're reading the book, and then create websites based on the research they found. At the elementary, Research is different because kindergartners can't handle a research project. Well, we actually did do a research project with a kindergarten class. We did a research project where they actually made their own inventions. And it was kind of interesting how they explained their own inventions. We talk about doing basic skills and like doing keywords in kindergarten or using WebQuest for first grade. Second and third grade do class projects. Fourth grade and fifth grade actually do projects, but in fifth grade, we let them pick their own tools. If you teach those tools through kindergarten through fifth grade, let them come up with whatever project they feel like needs to create them. Uh, so great example of those things. So research is a great way of doing those, and the challenge-based learning really fits into Michael. So those are really good ways to architect all of that. So those are some basic things that we actually focus on. Um, this has been my main goal forever. The focus is on empowering teachers like you that focus on student learning through creation. It could be through critical thinking, it could be communication, it could be through collaboration. But that's been my goal all of these years. And that's one of the things my mission has been to you guys out there is that I provided to empower teachers. And one of the things I want to talk about is that the end result. And not all these projects, some of these projects I worked with, I coached long before coaching was a big thing. And some of the projects I inspired these teachers to do, and they did amazing things. And we brainstormed and came up with ideas. But there's a lot of things that it's not about me. I mean, I have lots of accomplishments. You know, I can say I've won national awards. I've raised $22 million in grants for this district over the past 20 something years. I've been published in national publications. I've presented at a national conference. But, guess what? That's not important. This is important. This drawing was done by a second grader. I walked into the classroom after working with him the day before, and he had done that all on his own, a drawing. He drew that, and I walked in, he handed it to me. And that to me is worth everything. Another quick story. I had a third grader the first time we did the digital mystery. Oh my gosh, he was like all over the place. He was the first time I met him, he was like putting his chest on the table and moving it all around. I mean, he was a good kid, but he couldn't sit still, and that's okay. And it's really important. When we did that project, he came up and hugged me after we were done and presenting it to his grade level. And that's amazing, is that's why it's the way it is. And it's just really cool to see those kinds of things. And I really say, this is what I want to say to everybody. It's not in my last hurrah. I have a few more weeks, but this is what I want to say is this. Thank you. And it's time for a new chapter. Melissa?
John, we love you. I can't tell you all. I'm reading the comments. Kim Colt says, I can attest John has focused on and prioritized student creation the whole time he has known you for over 20 years. Um, Lisa Hoskins, I have to add this. She put that drawing makes your day, which it does 100%. Tasha wrote, you are amazing, John. I've learned so much from you. Um, Kim Culp, again, John was podcasting before podcasting was cool, which is oh so very true. Um, the whole team, well, I have to go to JD first. He has been chiming in throughout this entire presentation about the amazing work you've done. I think his favorite thing, if I have to speak for him, was the crash test dummy, because I know that was one of my favorites, and he chatted about that. Um, Dana Rubenstein put, thank you, John, for your dedication to students and educators. Rebecca, thank you, John. And the whole team, thank you, John Long. You have been such a vital huge part of Palm Beach County for 35 years. You have made such an amazing impact on students and teachers and how teachers teach and how students learn. And oh my goodness. I just can't say enough wonderful things. I'm going to chime in. I have one more comment from Lisa Hoskins. We thank you for all your experience and work with students and teachers. Wishing you all the best in your new chapter or your next chapter. And Tasha said she didn't realize we were all going to need some tissues. Um, and I completely agree with her. Um, again,
Oh,
John, thank
I'm
you.
not leaving education. My next chapter still is in education. You'll just have to follow me a different way. So there's new things coming.
We can do that. And I'm sure we will. You have so many people that love and admire you, and I know when I get older, I want to be John Long. So there's that. We love you. Thank you so much for everything. And with that, if there's no oh, wait, hold on. Green Acres have to have their comment up here.
Thanks,
Learned so
Deb.
much from you. Even when I was an ITSA and now media specialist, you've challenged me so many times. And oh, probably the most important comment of all, to keep learning from you. Please follow him on Twitter at a digital learner. Um, so please do that. If there's no further comments, I'm going to go ahead. Thank you so much, Sean, for everything.
Don't
And
miss the student
everybody,
panel.
yes, the student panel is next. Remember, hashtag PBC Tech Comp for prizes and enjoy the rest of your day. Now I got to
Thank you.
find the outgo. Thank you.